The following program is presented for your entertainment by the Sale Tourist Authority in conjunction with the Stratford Bowling Club and the Combined Church of England Ladies Guild. Sunny Sale, gateway to the Gippsland Riviera and the Dutson Sewage Farm. Welcome to Sale, sheep swapping capital of Australia. Please hand your brain in to the nearest police station. And now, please welcome the latest and only sensation to come out of Sale, the Weekend Rockstars.
Billy Weir and Geoff Cross, welcome guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess let's ask about the name, the Weekend Rockstars. It says to me that obviously you weren't setting out to do it as a full-time job, and it was going to be a weekend thing for you guys initially, maybe. Stop me if I'm wrong.
No, well, the whole thing that happened in Melbourne was really an accident. We gave it to Gary, got played, and yeah, it was sort of, then it just went sort of mad. I remember the first, we decided, oh, something's happened, we better get down and take advantage of this. We actually went and stayed with Andy and Di Rule, Andrew, the journalist.
Head editor at the Herald Sun.
He used to be a roadie for us.
Yeah.
That's a handy connection.
Yeah, it's very handy actually.
Roadie.
Lucky you're nice to the roadies.
Yeah,
roadie,
right.
booking agent, bouncer.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Yeah, so sort of rock and roll's loss was journalism's gain.
So the four of you in the Weekend Rockstars obviously had your day-to-day jobs. So
Oh yeah.
what were you all doing at that time, and how did you get out of it all to be able to go off and be a rock
The
star?
strangest part of being in that situation where you're working 5 days a week and then trying to play the rock star, like realistically, like running around Melbourne and playing as much as you could, was during the week, and I can remember as clear as anything being in the main street of Sale, Main Street, and a guy stopped me and said, "Hey, you guys must be all right." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "I saw you in the Herald." And that's what it takes to be successful.
You just got to be in the paper.
You just got to be in the paper. And it's strange, and that's the perception in Gippsland. It's like you just can't be successful from here, and it's unfortunate because there's some great talent that lies in this district.
World-class talent.
Incredible. And but there is that little bit of a vibe about place, unfortunately, that you can't succeed. But if you show up in the paper, like a prominent Melbourne paper, and sort of like, and they read about it, sort of like, oh, they're good. Exactly.
Well, is that how you guys started out? Did you make a conscious effort to get together and say, we're going to make a band that sort of takes the piss about the area, but in the most lovingly way possible?
Yeah, there was no real malice intended, and we didn't intend to sort of like knock cover bands or whatever, but because you were placed in that situation, there was times when it became a bit of a us versus them mentality. But it was about having fun, and I've spoken to several people years later who I thought hated the band. They said, "No, we used to love you because we used to say that, and you'd say this to us." And yeah.
So you took off to Melbourne and didn't have the luxury of internet back in the 80s. So what was the process of getting noticed?
Well, we didn't actually take off to Melbourne, did we?
We did the single. I gave a couple of copies to Gary Cranston, who was an expat of Sale, and he happened to be working at 3XY along with his partner Kate Mason, and he just said, "Oh, give us a few more, and I'll give them to Gracie, Peter Grace, who was kind of winning the ratings on Melbourne radio at that time. I'll give it to Gracie. He might play one at one of his discos or something like that." So never really heard anything more, and I think we were out rehearsing at the farmhouse in Munro, and the phone rings, and I answer the phone, and it's Gary, and he says, "Have a listen to this," and he starts playing the record over the phone, and I'm sort of thinking, looking at him, why is Gary playing the record over the phone to me? And it sort of ends, and then you hear, Ah, that's the Weekend Rockstars there from Gippsland. You're listening to Peter Grace on 3XY. What a heavy metal dilemma.
You've got an iconic photo of you guys standing in a sheep yard. You've got your instruments out, and you've got the sheep all milling around you, and you've got the photo behind you there. You've got your woolen Guernseys. In fact, you've got one here.
Oh, yeah.
What is that made of?
Wool, of course.
And you get your footy numbers on the back. Do you all have different numbers on the back?
That's one of the old originals too, that one.
We were going to wear them for the interview, but they've shrunk.
Funny enough. Yeah, how did they wash, by the way, those things?
Yeah, that's right.
Terribly.
And how's the smell after all playing all these pubs?
Not good.
Jeez.
But after all this airplay and all this stuff, of course we were travelling to Melbourne every weekend, like everywhere. Well, probably I'd knock off on a Thursday from work, and we'd play Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, sometimes a Saturday arvo as well. They were really working us pretty hard. Premier artists.
Premier artists, yeah.
And but some of the bands we were getting to play with, it was sort of like, wow, you know, this cannot be happening.
Yeah,
but it was.
Name drop some of them for us.
Well, I think the biggest thing, the first support we did in Melbourne was at the Mooney Ponds Tavern, supporting the late great Ted Mulry and his gang, and that was great.
Right,
but I think the biggest thing that kind of happened to us was supporting Uncanny X-Men, because as a live act they were just selling the place out. They were closing doors everywhere. So we were lucky, because suddenly we just got shoved in front of umpteen people,
thousands of people,
and it was an opportunity that many bands didn't get. You know, there were a lot of Melbourne bands who were going, "Who are these upstarts?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So-
how come they're getting this gig?
Yeah.
You know, but it was a great match because they had that little bit of humour too in their show, and they were just packing houses. Like, you go to the tarmac and there was 1,000 people in there in the room, and it was just like crammed to the front, and it was just so alien to us, you know. But to walk out and perform in front of that sort of thing, and once you, particularly with We Can't Play Smoke on the Water, because they all knew that from the radio, and that's when you started to realise this connection of not just a small group of people, but just thousands of people. As soon as you started that riff and that song started, their hands went up and they're all, It was that feeling when you know, geez, this must be good if you had a dozen of these.
Yeah, that's
How
right.
good would this be?
What was that learning experience like, going into with a professional booking agencies and playing in front of these sorts of crowds, and you'd be standing out in the bar watching bands before you, and you once told me, Jeff, that you had to, the booking agent once came out and told you had to bugger off out the back. You weren't to be seen before the gig.
That was at the Prospect Hill Hotel. Yeah. We got dressed down there by the manager. Sort of come by and said, "You guys were seen at the bar having a beer." He said, "Mate, you don't do that down here.
No, you don't mix with the common people. You don't mix with the punters.
You don't mix with the punters. You're not to be seen before a show."
What do you say to that?
Well, we sort of were accustomed to that because we used to love drinking with the punters. But
well, we didn't actually drink. The punters used to pour beer down our throats.
Yeah, it's cheap.
But it was just one of those done things. It still is today, really. I mean, the artists aren't to be seen. You know, it's sort of. I think what it does is it heightens that sort of whole idea that they've just sort of been dropped into outer space or something. Just on the stage, it's like, wow, they're here. You know, and there they are. But when they're standing shoulder to shoulder, if they're having a pot with you at the pub, you know, at the bar, it's just sort of like, oh, there's nothing special about these guys. Like, they're just going to be up there playing in a minute. I guess that's what we do down here, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny how people's perception sort of, when they've seen you in a thing like, I remember after Rocktober, a couple of weeks after, I was down in Melbourne. I was out with a couple of friends, and before I went home, I was calling into the 7-Eleven to spend my last dollar on a loaf of bread for the morning, and I sort of walked in, got what I wanted, and walked out. Then my two mates come walking out laughing, and I said, "What are you laughing at?" He said, "Oh, we were up there ready to pay for what we wanted, and this girl said to her boyfriend, 'That was Billy Rockstar.'" and he looked at her and said, "Don't be stupid, what would he be doing here?"
spending his last dollar.
And a loaf of bread. You could have got your milk to go with it or
It
something.
was pretty tough, I got to say, because like we were, the supports paid virtually nothing, and most of the money we made went on roadies, and we had to supply roadies, and we couldn't afford them, so it was either one. And we used to share the sort of deed of actually having to roadie. And when you're playing with Uncanny X-Men, they've got 8.5 tons of gear to shift. It ain't easy.
No.
And and then you had to play.
Yeah.
Afterwards, so you're sort of lying down sort of with exhaustion for 2 hours before you had to play.
You guys had quite a good rapport with the roadies.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. We had they, for some reason, all the roadies seemed to glue up with us for some reason. They had a sort of they just seemed to sort of, we had a great rapport.
I think because we were sort of sending the pop star thing up, and they were probably used to taking abuse from pop stars. And but the bands were like Uncanny X-Men. I mean, we played the tarmac, and we didn't know what to expect, and we got an encore, and we thought, oh, we didn't know. Is that normal?
What do we do?
The DJ, as we were going off, sort of said, I've never seen that before. The support band get an encore. And see, Uncanny X-Men could have gone, well, we don't want them because they're
Too popular.
But they were really supportive, and they sort of saw how us coming on before them sort of was a good thing.
Yeah,
because
it stirred the crowd up,
Yeah.
got them a bit hungry, and so they were a fantastic bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Like they were a really good band.
Yeah,
Playing.
and you know, I still to this day think Brian Mannix is a star. He's just like a performer, and he is sort of much maligned just because he was so politically incorrect and such a little brash arsehole.
Almost did like the punk rock thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
Now this all really led to one of the highlights was the Rocktober you touched on before.
Yes.
Now that was in front of 50,000 people.
No, about 30,000.
Yeah,
about 30,000.
About 30,000.
So
Olympic Park.
how did the success of the single lead to that gig?
Well, it was the 3XY
Yeah,
Rocktober.
yeah.
They were the ones that did the show, and so us coming up through the 3XY ranks, sort of being played, they sort of felt that we were sort of theirs in a funny sort of a way, didn't they? Because Peter Grace sort of discovered the single, and they got a lot of gravity out of it.
Yeah.
And to put it into perspective, what other acts were playing on that day?
Trying to think.
Well, Skyhooks had reformed. They were the headliners. That was the big thing. They reformed for that. Was Aussie Crawl, Australian Crawl,
The Hooters from Sydney, Electric Pandas.
Electric Pandas,
There was all these, there's some big
Ostentatious.
ostentatious. The size of the stage was something that we had never ever seen in our lives.
It was a bit dreamlike, I think.
Just incredible. And we had our little amps we used to use at all the hotels and the pubs. We stand out there with, they look like little transistors sitting behind us.
Yeah.
What's going on? But of course, it's all mic'd up and big fold wedges. They had a side fill, so that everyone could hear what they were playing from the side. That was about 3 times the size of the PA we used to use live.
Right.
Incredible. And that was the side fill.
The sound was superb. Wherever you walked, you could kind of like hear everything you were doing.
It was incredible.
It was just
Beautifully set up.
and to just get that vibe of like however many people were out there when we played on your side, was incredible. In fact, I don't think I'm bragging when I say that the reaction we got wasn't sort of duplicated for about another 3 or 4 acts after us. We were probably lucky because we only had a short 25-minute set, so we were able to sort of
Compact it.
do the best of Weekend Rockstars.
Once again, it was the interesting feeling. It was we're playing and they're all sort of mulling around and they're all sitting primarily, aren't they? Sort of most of them had a group of people standing at the front, but mainly sitting around at Olympic Park. But once again, as soon as that first riff started, they all stood up. Everyone stood up, and that was when you get that in line. Bloody.
You got to tell us a story about when you were in Melbourne and you were putting up the posters in the middle of the night to advertise your gig, you actually had to get permits to put posters up in those days?
Well, you did. Everybody sort of did it illegally. There was sort of poster companies that sort of had their territory, and it was a bit sort of, well, if you went on their territory, you'd get into trouble, or the agency would get rung, and what are they doing on our territory and whatever. So it was a bit sort of hope to put them up and hope they last, but it was also illegal to build posts, and I'm there one night with the tape and the paste and sticking them on this railway bridge, and the police pull up, and this policeman calls me over, and he sort of goes, "Okay, you know what you're doing is illegal." And I said, "Oh, no, didn't know." And he sort of looks around, and he pulls out his first one, he said name, and I give him the name, address, and he's asking all these details, and he said, "Do you have a police record?" And it was one of those moments I just couldn't resist. I said, "No, but I got Sting's solo album." And he just,
take that?
He just sort of looked at me and
got
said,
off.
"Have you been in trouble with the law, smartass?"
Well, thanks, pals, for coming in today and coming down the line. I know you, Jeff, you've come from Meetung, and Billy, you've come down from Melbourne to meet in the centre today and have a chat about some of the old days and some of the things you're doing now. And we hope to see you in the near future playing again.
Just keep an ear out for Billy Weir and the Sons of Skippy.
Yeah. No, it's been an absolute pleasure just to get together and reminisce, but I'm also appreciative of the fact that somebody remembers, and they were great times, and it's a great job that the Live at Spectrum show's doing. So
well, we're having a moment to be able to talk to guys like you. Great sense of humour. We love music just like you guys do. So
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you
very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Good on you, Brett. Thanks, mate.
Jeff, it's beautiful.